Okay, chapter 21 is all about setting the right price. Be sure to look over your learning outcomes. There are only 5 for chapter 21, so be aware of them and be able to explain or answer what they're telling you to do. Okay, we're starting with 21.1, which is how to set a price on a product. Now, the first step in setting the right price is to establish pricing goals, as you can see on this slide. If you think back to chapter 20, we learned that pricing objectives fall into 3 different categories: profit-oriented, sales-oriented, and status quo. And these pricing goals are derived from the firm's overall objectives. Having a good understanding of the marketplace and of the consumer, the people who are going to be purchasing or at least wanting to buy your product, can tell a manager if a goal is realistic. You have to also keep in mind that all pricing objectives have trade-offs. So, like reaching the desired market share often means that you have to sacrifice maybe short-term profits to be able to get to that point, because without careful management, long-term profit goals may not be met. Also, meeting the competition is the easiest pricing goal to implement, but demands and costs, the product life cycle stage that your product is in, and multiple other considerations cannot be ignored when creating pricing objectives. Setting the right price is a 4-step process, so make sure that you're aware of the 4-step process as shown in Exhibit 21.1. I would strongly recommend that you read this section carefully in your book, go through it a little bit more thoroughly so that you are in tune with this 4-step process. Now, choosing a price strategy, it sets a competitive price in a specific market segment. Now, changing a price strategy can require drastic alterations in the marketing mix, which sometimes actually includes changing the product itself, which can be a big deal. Pricing a new product does depend on the market conditions. It also depends upon your marketing mix, the 4 Ps, as well. So, for example, if you're introducing a product that resembles many other products in the market, right? There are a lot of other companies that have this same type of product, which is very similar to them. You'll be very restricted in regards to what you can sell your product for. If there are substitutes out there, you have to keep your product reasonably priced with those substitutes. In contrast to that, introducing a new product with no close substitutes will give you considerable pricing freedoms. Companies that plan for creating a price strategy can usually select from 3 basic approaches: price skimming, penetration pricing, and status quo pricing. Price skimming is a pricing policy where a firm starts out by charging a high price, often coupled with heavy promotion. Companies will often use price skimming for new products when the product is perceived as having some sort of a unique advantage over anybody else, or potentially being the first product to the market. That's called also having what's called the first mover advantage. And over time, the price of this product, over the product life cycle, the price of the product tends to be lowered over time. Firms often feel it is better to test the market at a higher price and then lower the price if sales are too slow, so that people will feel that they're getting a better deal. And price skimming strategy will often encourage competitors to enter the market because they could enter it at a lower price and try to beat you out on that pricing objective. Penetration pricing. This is the complete opposite end of the spectrum from price skimming. Penetration pricing is where you start by charging a low price for the product to try to get a larger market share. Having a larger market share and increased sales will result in lower production costs, referring back to that economies of scale. The more of something you produce, the less per item it is to produce it. So you take advantage of those economies of scale. Status quo pricing. This is simply is referring to meeting the competition's prices by charging an identical price, or at least a price that's very close to the competition's prices. It's a very simple method of pricing, but this strategy oftentimes ignores demand. It could ignore your costs as well, which are things that are really important to at least consider when coming up with your pricing strategy. Okay, identifying legal constraints on pricing decisions. The issues that limit pricing decisions are unfair trade practices, price fixing, price discrimination, and predatory pricing. Okay, I would know the 4 issues that limit pricing decisions. Definitely know those. In over half the states, unfair trade practices and trade practice acts put a floor under wholesale and retail prices, and selling below cost is illegal. Okay, selling below cost is illegal. Wholesalers and retailers have to then take a certain minimum percentage of markup on their combined merchandise costs and transportation costs. So if you figure out how much the total overall cost is for a particular product, including manufacturing, transportation, merchandise costs, you have to mark it up at least a certain percentage for it to be able to be considered a legal act. The most common markup figures are 6% at the retail level and 2% at the wholesale level. That's just across the board an average number. Okay, you're not stuck to that. Now, retailers and wholesalers have to be able to provide what's called conclusive proof that operating costs are lower than their sales figures. Price fixing is illegal under the Sherman Act and the Federal Trade Commission Act. So there are 2 different legislations that were passed that make price fixing illegal. All right, this slide outlines the 6 elements necessary for violation of the Robinson-Patman Act. I would just be able to be aware, I would recommend that you be aware of the 6 different elements necessary for violation of the Robinson-Patman Act, okay, in regards to price discrimination. Now, that same act does provide 3 different defenses for the seller who is being charged with price discrimination. And you have to just remember that the way that our legal system is set up, that in each case the burden of proof is on the defendant to prove the defense. The prosecution is going to do everything that they can to make it look like they are guilty. The defense has to prove their innocence. The cost side of things is where a firm can charge different prices to different customers if the prices represent manufacturing or quantity discount savings. The more you buy of something, you could get a discount based upon that. Second one is market conditions. This is where price variations are justified if they are designed to meet fluid product or market conditions. Examples include perishable goods. If they are reaching their expiration date, there can be a lowering of price even below the cost. Seasonal products become out of season. That could be one. All right, a going out of business sale could be another one, just to get the inventory out. The third one, competition, is a reduction in price may be necessary to stay even with the competition as well. And if you can prove that, then you are able to sell at those lower prices. Predatory pricing is illegal under the Sherman Act and the Federal Trade Commission Act. However, proving the use of this practice tends to be really difficult and often very expensive going through the legal processes. Right. In this case, the Justice Department, it is their job to show that the company who is being accused of predatory pricing has explicitly tried to ruin a competitor and that the predatory price was below the predator's average variable costs. There's a lot of burden of proof there, and it's very difficult to prove the intent and to find the actual numbers to prove their point as well. Okay, moving on to 21.3. The base price is a general price level at which the company expects to sell a good or a service. Okay, so we're talking about base price. Again, it's the general price level at which the company expects to sell a good or a service. That general price level is correlated with the company's pricing policy. Okay, above the market pricing, at the market, or below the market. The final step then is to fine-tune that base price. And fine-tuning techniques include discounts, geographic pricing, and then grouped together just other pricing tactics. Base price can be lowered through the use of discounts and related tactics of things that are called allowances, rebates, low or 0% financing, value-based pricing. Discounts are often used to encourage customers to do what they would not normally do, which would be, for example, maybe pay cash for something, take a delivery out of season, multiple things. They're trying to give incentive for people to do things that normally they wouldn't do to try to encourage sales. The most common tactics you can see are on this slide. Quantities discounts with lower prices for buying multiple units. Cash discounts are offered for prompt payment of your bill. Functional discounts, also called trade discounts, are often offered when intermediaries in the channel of distribution perform a service for the manufacturer. Seasonal discounts are lower prices for buying merchandise out of season. Promotional allowances are payments to dealers for promoting their products in their store, the manufacturer's products in the store. Rebates are just cash refunds for buying a product in a specific period of time. 0% financing, that is what offers no interest, or sometimes low percent financing, very low interest rates to try to increase sales. And value-based pricing sets the price at a level that seems to the customer to be a really good price compared to other prices. All right, now I would encourage you to be able to give a couple examples of these discounts or allowances, rebates that add to value-based pricing. All right, now this is where I'm going to stop the first video. We'll pick up from here on the next one.